Well, you're doing a lot of video and live stuff. I just haven't. Uh, Julie Gamick was trying to get me interested in doing live Substack, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. What you're
Well,
doing?
maybe we'll have to give it a shot. But we'll
Yeah.
get. I could have done it with this. They've doing
No,
it.
that's all right. I need a haircut.
Okay, Art. We'll get going. 2 foot of snow, you say? Tough to get it.
Well, I haven't measured it, but there's a hell of a lot of snow out there. We've been in the center of two snowstorms in the last 2 weekends, and uh, it tends to suck the motivation out of me, what little motivation I have.
Yeah. So you said something as we were getting on and just chit-chatting. You said it's hard to make a living here in rural Iowa. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, that I guess specifically what I was thinking is that we own a weekly newspaper in Cherokee, a town of about 5,000 people, and the weekly in Storm Lake, a town of about 10,000 people. And we just looked at our financials for November. That's the month ahead of Christmas, which used to be the biggest quarter in the newspaper industry. And we made $667 in Storm Lake and lost a couple grand in Cherokee. And so it just caused me to reflect on how it's just very difficult. And this is, not to brag, but we actually did win a Pulitzer Prize. We put out a very good newspaper, and and you just bust your hump trying to make $67 in a month. It's you just keep rolling that rock up the hill, and so there, I got it out of my system. There's, like I say, it's a gray day and there's a bunch of snow outside, and, and it's not easy making a living in rural Iowa. I was at invited to speak at a local store about my new book, and she said, "Yeah, well, maybe you could do a story about it, and then we'll have the radio station call you, and they'll do a story about it, and then we're going to buy an ad on Facebook." And even though our newspaper reaches more eyeballs than Facebook does, honestly, in Buena Vista County, uh, they didn't spend a penny with us. And they just take us for granted. So there's me crying in my coffee.
Well, the world has really changed. Let's start um, a little bit differently right now. Tell people who Art Cullen is.
Uh, Art Cullen is the editor of the Storm Lake Times Pilot in Northwest Iowa. And I was born in Storm Lake. Uh, Went off to school in Minnesota and then worked at newspapers in Algona, Ames, and Mason City, and came home and helped my brother start a newspaper in Storm Lake, and been here ever since. That was 1990, and so I'm 68. I'm married. My wife Dolores is a photographer and feature writer at the newspaper. My son Tom is the managing editor, and I'm trying to semi-retire now into a steady diet of commentary.
Okay, yeah, but at the same time, you said, hold on a second, Bob, don't start. I've got to forward a press release from the police department.
Yeah. Yes. Uh, Over to my son Tom. Yeah. So because I filter out route all the emails. It's like having a dairy herd. You can't get away from it.
Yes, for sure. Do you remember what's your first memory, uh, say, of living in Storm Lake? The first memory when you were a little boy. Do you recall what your first memory?
Yes, absolutely. It was of when I was I think 2 years old. Uh, I can vividly remember my dad being taken off to the University of Wisconsin at Madison Hospital for a treatment of tuberculosis that he contracted from World War II, from his service in Sicily. And our family was quarantined uh, uh, as a result. And I just remember it was that traumatic that I can remember him getting into the car and riding off uh, up Geneseo Street to the train station.
And he was leaving you,
Yes,
and you didn't know for what. You didn't know what tuberculosis was.
right. And I just knew that we couldn't go anywhere and couldn't see anybody.
How do you think that experience impacted you?
Probably made me neurotic. So, but yeah, it's it must have impacted me. But my dad was a nice guy. Died too young at age 62 when I was 16, and from complications arising from his respiratory system, and ultimately pancreatic cancer. Uh, but he was operating with one lung, and so. But he wasn't. He would try and play catch with you, and he could only play for a couple of minutes before he'd just be completely worn out. So, it was that certainly influenced me.
Well, and it influenced. I'm just gonna, throw some things out here and say what you think. You write a lot about rural life. You write a lot about, um, medical care. I mean, your father having to get on a train to go get medical care and leave home because he lived in rural Iowa. That impacted your writing still today. I suspect you also learned about, global affairs and war and conflict and the human condition and the suffering that comes from human.
Yeah, I developed a resentment for the military also because, and the government because at the medical records building that housed all the World War II veterans' medical records burned down strangely. So all my dad's claims on the Veterans Administration were denied. And so he didn't get any veterans benefits from contracting tuberculosis during World War II. And so, yeah, it developed. I'm deeply suspicious of the government and the Pentagon.
Okay. And, resentful also, as many as of us are in rural America, where we don't get because of, just the, budgetary kinds of constraints in delivering medical care to people, we don't get the same kind of care always, especially if we don't have the insurance we're supposed to have, et cetera.
Yeah, that's right. For example, our newspaper, we have a PPO plan because that's all we can afford through Blue Cross Blue Shield. And on Medicare, I can go to the Mayo Clinic. On our newspaper insurance policy, you can't go to the Mayo Clinic. You can't even go to the University of Iowa. You must go to Sioux City. And I would note that St. Luke's in Sioux City was just put on probation uh, for its trauma care status because of its poor operations. So you're stuck there if you're on private health insurance in a rural area.
You also write about um, agriculture. You also write about the environment, you write about immigration. How do those tie into the other themes that we see with rural healthcare, cancer of your father, the distrust of the military, the government? Is there another way to tie them up into the bow?
Well, I guess, given my conspiracy theories, you could, yeah, obviously, the government controls our lives, and it can conscript you in the military, it can deport you to Libya, uh, uh, and it controls our granary, as government has since the days of the pharaohs. And uh, so government permeates our lives. and we're treating it as some benign influence.
Okay. And it seems to be, it's just incredible that the government under the, I want to say, I guess I'm not comfortable saying the leadership of Donald Trump is exerting more and more power over us.
Oh yeah, and when you consider what he's his approach toward the Somali citizens, I stress citizens. 95% of the Somalis living in the Twin Cities are citizens, and he's moving to deport them and calling them human garbage, along with a member of Congress. I think we have hit the low point, you know, and it's for reals. It's not just some woke person's fantasy. This is real. The government is moving against the people.
So reflect back to say when you're
95% of them are citizens. It's unbelievable the ignorance and racism that's being directed at the citizens of the United States. It is unbelievable to me in 2025. Just had to get that in there.
Well, no, thank you for doing that. And it seems that a lot of our fellow Iowans don't care that they're citizens. All they care about is that they're black and they're from another country to just, highlight the racism that you're saying. They're indifferent.
Yeah, uh, and they just assume that those Mexicans all got run off, except they are manning the dairies and they're working on the kill floor. And we're not sure how we'd get our cheap dairy and meat were it not for Mexicans. And so we put up with them. It's cynical, and we did not used to be this way, I don't think, unless I'm just fooling myself.
I agree. I don't think that we used to be this way either. It's a lot of I mean, there was this undercurrent of racism while we were growing up, but it was nothing like it is today.
No, and it wasn't, uh, we are going to come and get you, citizen. We're going to arrest you because you are garbage. We're going to bring the full force of the federal government against you. That is stunning.
And they're going to be wearing
I think
masks.
you were the one who reported on Tom Harkin calling this stuff Nazi and fascist. And I think this is a perfect example of what's really going on.
Well, and that it was Tom Harkin that said it, even keel, thoughtful, kind Tom Harkin calling it out like that is just should be a wake-up call for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And but like you say, we're sort of indifferent to it. Oh, well, a bunch of Somalis up in the Twin Cities, who cares?
Hmm.
Uh, but what if they raided uh, the Lamar's Dairy? What if they raided Tyson and Storm Lake or uh, West Liberty?
Well, you'll remember that I think your son Tom reported Joni Ernst telling the kids at Storm Lake High School or middle school that they didn't have to worry about immigration officials coming for them or their parents. That was a promise that Joni Ernst made. And so you think there's been some kind of a carve out for people working in the meatpacking plants.
No question. In fact, I think Trump just actually described it, a week or two ago, when he said that there actually is a carve out. And uh, but that's been evident all along that when they did shut down the Tyson pork plant in Storm Lake and the Tyson pork plant in Waterloo, meat prices across the country went up 50% in a week. And so they realize that they cannot deport the immigrant labor manning these meatpacking plants. Now, Tyson would insist that they're all documented, um, and you can believe that at your own peril.
And so when I was thinking about this, it makes me wonder if it's all part, it's part of an interesting scenario in the sense that if immigrants know that they're safe at meat packing plants, what are the collateral kinds of damages that are done, to our manufacturing sector, which is also reliant upon immigrants, and our construction sector and our hospitality sector? It's just, I mean, what are the implications? Or, I mean, if I know that I'm going to
And
be,
the meatpacking employees are scared to death, even faced with the fact that there have been no raids of major meatpacking plants. Uh, Certainly no Tyson plants. They're and they are scared to death. So think of what the roofing crew must think. Because they are targets. And uh, the administration did raid a JBS plant in Ottumwa and shipped out a couple hundred Cubans, but I interpreted that as a shot across the bow to their Brazilian owners, the Batistas. And Trump is in a tiff with Brazil right now. And so I think that was a shot across the bow at the Batistas, just letting them know who's in charge here.
Mhm. So, I don't know, there's just so much trauma coming from the Trump administration, and it's not just that. I mean, a lot of it's directed at immigrants, a lot of it's directed at trans people, it's directed at anybody that's a little bit different. America's being traumatized by our current administration. What do you think the long-term effects are going to be?
Well, it's impossible to tell because we're going week to week. Just the liberal justices on the Supreme Court suggested that in a case yesterday they heard that it could uh, bring lay the government asunder if Trump is given full authority to fire anybody, including the Federal Reserve chief chairman. And so it's hard to know, but the liberal justices at least are afraid that Trump could lay the government asunder, in their words. So it's not just me, you know, thinking my crazy thoughts. Uh, these are serious lawyers suggesting that democracy is on a knife's edge.
What do you think the end game is of MAGA and Trump and the oligarchs? Drive us all from the landscape, consolidate everything, have us, essentially be peasants grateful for any bone they throw at us?
Well, I think it's just power. I think I mean, they're mainly interested in power and adulation, and however you fit into that, maybe you can fit into that comfortably. Uh, but anybody who believes in the United States and the promise and the myth of the United States, anybody who believes in that we're a free people, uh, you know, would find that they don't fit in, I would think. But I think their immediate aim is just power for power's sake and enrichment, but it's really about power.
Well, he's rewriting, the rules, of international relations. It looks like he's getting into spheres of influence where the Russians have their sphere of influence, the Chinese have theirs, we have ours. Where Europe and India are seems to me to be sort of uncertain. To me, it's putting Taiwan and maybe Australia and our ally Japan, you know, in the hot seat.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, there are spheres of influence that are changing with the rotation of the globe. Yeah. Um, that is, as they say, beyond my pay grade.
No, it's not art. It isn't beyond your pay grade. You're one of the most insightful commentators I know on, on all kinds of issues. You rarely get into international affairs, except when it, sort of relates to climate and food policy, et cetera. But still, it's not above your pay grade.
Yeah, well, yeah, I do believe that they're moving to take control of, China certainly is moving to take control of food systems in their own self-interest because they don't trust us to be a reliable food supplier. And I believe that, so going off in your sphere of influence discussion, that Russia invaded Ukraine because eastern Ukraine is where the wheat supply is and access to the ports through Crimea. And I think that the role of food production has been terribly underestimated in the whole Ukrainian conflict, that Russia wants to control wheat supplies while it can, and that Ukraine and Russia combined are the leading supplier of wheat to Europe and Africa. And China is, its number one policy is self-reliance in food production. So uh, we fail to calculate that in to our strategic worldview. We think Russia invaded Ukraine over its colonial ambitions, when in fact it's a more pragmatic concern, I think, uh, and that is food and energy production.
So we could talk about this stuff all day long, but
Yeah.
tell us about your new book, Dear Marty, We Crapped Our Nest. Reflections from the End of the World, or that's some approximation.
Well, it's a short book, so that's a good start. It's just under 200 pages. So, and and it's an easy read in the bathroom. You can pick it up at any point and read it in the bathroom, and it'll make sense. At least it makes sense to me in the bathroom. And it started out as a book about how our dominion has been our undoing, that manifest destiny where we set out to plunder the Great Plains and drive the native people off into reservations. And we've uh, domineered our way into a corner now that we're having a hard time coping with. And because we don't understand how to live within our landscape. And so again, we took I started it out with a friend of mine, Marty Case, during the pandemic. And because we had nothing else to do but talk on the phone every day. And so we talked on the phone and made notes for this chapter and wrote this chapter called The Corn Gospel and shopped it around to New York publishers. And they all said, rural doesn't sell, get lost. And so we got lost. And then Steve Semkin from Ice Cube Press, who published your book, Bob, your great book, Deep Midwest. Uh, he'd been bugging me for some time to do something, and so I decided to throw a bunch of essays around this core chapter called the Corn Gospel, and have it as kind of a reflection on where we've been over the last 50 years and 200 years, uh, and how we've spoiled what should be the richest place on earth. There should be no hardship in Iowa, yet we have a food pantry in Storm Lake where we slaughter 15,000 hogs a day, and the food pantry is running out of meat. And uh, that's the kind of economy we've created here in rural Iowa, when we should be all doing the boogaloo like the Iowa people were before we showed up. Uh, they were living the good life, and then we came in and screwed it all up to the point where we can't feed ourselves in the breadbasket of the world, and we're choking our natural systems, including the Gulf of Mexico, the Mississippi River complex, with pollution. And I see it as all interconnected. But how this chemical agriculture has degraded our lives here in Iowa. And it's the result of corporatization and consolidation and efficiency that seeks to drive people off the land and and upset ecological balances that have existed for thousands of years. And it's the height of stupidity and ignorance and arrogance to keep pursuing uh, this same strategy where we ship soil and people down the river uh, in return for a sort of serfdom.
It seems to me that this is a long story throughout history where, different civilizations have totally, outstripped their resources and collapsed. Are we near there?
Well, yes, we are. And to the point where, because of climate change, it's going to be too hot to grow corn south of Interstate 80 in 30 or 40 years. Our yields are according to Gene Tackley, a retired agronomist from Iowa State, who was part of a Nobel Prize winning climate modeling team. So he's no flake. And he's saying that our corn yields are going to decline by 30% or more, uh, given current climate trends. Uh, so yeah, it's it's a serious threat to our food production system in the here and now.
Yeah, tell about what are your thoughts on the ethanol industry? I know you can make them pretty quick.
Well, I have been a huge fan of renewable fuels until just the last few years when I've begun to figure out that we're choking ourselves growing corn and we're suffocating the Gulf of Mexico, creating a dead zone the size of New Jersey in the Gulf of Mexico, which is killing the shrimping industry because of nitrate fertilizer from Iowa and Illinois primarily, and Indiana, rushing down to the Gulf of Mexico and suffocating all life down there. And uh, we simply can't go on doing that. And we can't maintain. We've gone from having feet of black topsoil to having inches, and we're farming on a petrochemical base, and it can't continue like this. It's just a matter of nature that we can't go on like this. Uh, and we have to. We know how to do agriculture differently in a sustainable way, in a climate resilient way, but refuse to adopt those means because it would mean less sales to the seed and petrochemical industry. Every acre that goes out of production, it goes from corn to grass, say, in Iowa, uh, is an acre lost to Bayer and Corteva and the Cokes.
So it's sort of you're describing, suicide by capitalism.
Yeah, we've converted Iowa into a second world economy, and uh, that is an extractive economy by its nature, and we've almost extracted everything. Uh, and so uh, we know how to be prosperous, but that prosperity would be based in local labor rather than capital markets. That's why uh, Iowa's being strangled. And that sounds, uh, that smacks of socialism, maybe, but but them are the facts.
Mhm. You've got a unique writing style. Somebody commented, I wish I remembered exactly how they put it, but it was something they didn't know whether to laugh or cry reading your work. Um, and I know exactly what they're talking about. Who are your early writing influences?
Well, to say, regarding whatever that person said, that's the Irish nature of things. Well, you're laughing through tears, and so my influences in writing, I think, were uh, unquestionably William Butler Yeats, the great Irish poet who chronicled the Irish Revolution, uh, and then Donald Call of the of the Des Moines Register. Uh, and I copy Michael Gartner, a former editor of the Des Moines Register and the Ames Tribune, who's probably the best living writer in Iowa, but he's retired from writing now.
So where can people find your book? Ice Cube Press.
Order it from www.icecubepress.com, icecubepress.com. And that's a North Liberty-based independent publisher, and we appreciate every order.
Mhm.
And you
And
can
it's,
also order Deep Midwest by Dr. Bob Leonard there.
well, thank you. And it's, I'll say the holiday seasons are coming up, and so people should buy
It's the
multiple
perfect
copies.
holiday gift for only $20.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you've got a new movie that's out. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah. So uh, it kind of runs along the same themes as the book about we're doing a series of video documentaries about the real issues facing Iowa. Uh, Me and a guy by the name of Jerry Rishis, and he toured the world with Anthony Bourdain for 15 years as his photographer, his cinematographer, and uh, and then when Bourdain committed suicide, Jerry was looking for something to do, and so he did this documentary called Storm Lake about our newspaper, our family-owned newspaper. And I always wanted to work with Jerry on something as opposed to being the subject, to being his, to be in front of the camera in a different way. And so it turned out that Jesse Case, who leads the Iowa Teamsters Union out of Local 238 in Cedar Rapids, uh, wanted to do a series of shorter documentaries on the real issues facing Iowa, and that is, it doesn't have to do with what kind of underwear you're wearing or what bathroom you're using. It's, is the water safe to drink? Why are our cancer rates so high? Why is the family farm disappeared? And why is Keokuk dying on the vine? And so we're doing a series of 4 videos that uh, before the midterm elections that aimed at rural voters who are disaffected. And we hope to be able to send it out to all uh, inactive registered voters in Iowa. There are more inactive voters than there are Democrats, Republicans, or independents. And but a lot of people have just tuned out from the system, and we want to try and tune them back in on issues that actually affect their lives. How are the roads in Keokuk? That's the number one issue, not whether trans kids are playing girls basketball. It's the roads are terrible, okay? And our downtown is half vacant. Those are the real issues. And so that's what we're exploring. And with the help of we got started with the Teamsters with their contributions, and now we're trying to raise funds to complete the series and keep going. We haven't even scratched the surface of the issues, like our broken political system, the privatization of public education, how the state universities are being gagged. We haven't even scratched the surface. There's so many issues that in Iowa that demand attention, and we'd like to do more.
Well, and you say you're seeking support for that. Is there any way for us to help out here in the world?
Yeah, go to the Western Iowa Journalism Foundation and make a contribution to our video series. It would really help because, like I say, there's a lot of issues that we need to get to in rural Iowa before the 2026 midterms. This is a seminal election, the first time that we've had an open uh, U.S. Senate seat and an open governor's race since 1968. And so this is really important. If we want to drag Iowa back out of the Stone Age, the Republicans have been dragging us back there, back and back and back. And if we want to move forward, we got to acquaint ourselves with what the real issues are.
So, how are you doing personally? How's the family?
Well, good. Thanks, Bob. We're hanging in there. The newspaper's breaking even, and so that's good. By leaving Northwest Iowa, I'm getting the medical care I need. I'm a prostate cancer patient currently. Just got treated at Mayo Clinic for that, and so I feature myself in this video series episode. The first episode is water. The second episode is cancer. And and what I found is that to get the care you need, you really need to be your own advocate, and that we have two different systems of healthcare. One for people living in urban areas who have gold-plated health insurance, and then the rest of us. And I learned that uh, you know if you want to get the care you really need, you need to be in Omaha, Iowa City, or the Mayo Clinic, and none of which you can access through our private health insurance.
Well, and you've got a good, family to count on to help you with this
Oh,
outside.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son Tom is working with us, and my brother John, and yeah, we all lean on each other, and so that's a great thing. But uh, it's just I'm getting old, man. The systems are breaking down, and but it has been a real education for me on the disparities in our healthcare systems. And I'm not knocking the local healthcare systems; they're just dealing the cards they're dealt. But they get low they can't even keep the hospital open in Keokuk, you know, and that's a town that's similar in size to Storm Lake. Can't deliver a baby in Newton anymore.
No, nor Knoxville.
Is there a hospital still in Knoxville?
Yes,
Yeah,
no
okay.
babies. So, also at the center of your writing, and in the movie Storm Lake, anyway, that I've seen, also is your wife Dolores.
Yes.
What does she play?
Well, she's I'm a lazy Irishman. She's the hardworking, industrious Luxembourger, and so she's at work, uh, and she does all our features and photographer and mother hen, and the paper wouldn't get out without her, and she's doing great.
And you,
Uh,
go ahead.
Yeah, and like I say, she adds the color that is so vital to a community newspaper. The that she cares about the Witter Gallery and the pet rescue, and that's her thing.
And do you remember the first time you ever saw her?
Yes, I was working at the Algona newspaper, and she had ridden her bike from St. Joe, Iowa to Algona, which is about 10 miles, and she was wearing bike shorts, and that immediately attracted my attention.
Do you remember what it was like when you first realized that you loved her?
Yeah, we uh, had three dates and we were engaged.
Right
Three,
off.
yeah, it was in in Algona, Iowa, in the summer. It was June, and we had a couple three dates, and we were engaged, and we were married by Thanksgiving. And there was a blizzard on our wedding night, and everybody got snowed into Algona for 3 days. So anyway, we knew each other for a week or so before we were engaged, and then we were married within 6 months. And we've been married since 1980, 40 years. That ain't bad.
Love at first sight.
Yep. Or lust, one of the two.
I could talk with you all day, Art, but let's end on what gives you hope.
Um, well, that American democracy has survived this long through the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, uh, through the Cold War, World War II, the Cold War, uh, the McCarthy era. We can survive this guy. Uh, and as long as we have a free press, uh, we can self-correct. And I think that's the secret is a free and independent press that America will always self-correct.
Well, thank you for your time, Art.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it.